had to be because we relocated the doorway. It's all new roofs, all new flooring. Fire rating had to be spruced up. It was
I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting of Policy and Priorities Committee meeting to order. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the agenda for the April 15th, 2013 regular meeting of Policy and Priorities Committee be adopted. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do members of council have any pecuniary interest they need to disclose at this time? Can that be so noted in the minutes?
Oh, no, sorry, I do have one.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I wasn't paying attention. With the building permit policy, I should excuse myself.
Okay.
I did last time.
Okay.
I work in the industry.
Okay. Thank you for informing us of the general nature, and
Okay.
that can be noted. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Durley, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the issue sheet policy development and recommendation to Council, and that the new policy development be deferred until such times as a new policy template has been established reflecting the creative problem-solving format. Questions, comments? Maybe Mr. CAO, your expected timing on this? I think it's in here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's to coincide with the HR policy timelines that was discussed at regular council. We expect to have something shortly. You'll also notice sort of a first kick at the can with a sponsorship policy that follows the CPS process. So we're not expecting it takes a long time. I just wanted to sort of put a placeholder there because there was a few policies that council was expecting to come forward. And we've been holding off doing the work on them until we know what the new template is, as so not to have to come back and do amendments, in a short period of time.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further on that? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item is that sponsorship policy, and it has been moved by Councillor Ribiak, seconded by Councillor Clark, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the issue sheet municipal donation sponsorship policy, and that the P&P Committee recommend that Council approve the policy S-20107. Discussion? I had one item, and that is, I didn't see, so just looking for clarity on this, Mr. CAO, I guess the direct link between the interaction with permissive grants and information about service clubs, how we support service clubs with an amount every year, and sort of a gift in kind, I would call it, of $2,000, and also timing. So can you comment on those? There is one reference to the permissive grant, but not in the policy solution statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, again, a bit of a different format. We're inventing this as we go along. The entire document is the policy, I guess, is one way to approach it. And when you look at the section under the facts, key facts, eligible resources include municipally owned facilities, municipal staff support, municipally owned equipment, and municipally owned materials. Those would be the areas in which, or the things, if you will, that council could waive a fee or provide more or less of an in-kind donation. The other part is when you look at the decision making. Sorry, it's not the decision making. When you look at cash donations, if an organization is asking for cash, those are done through the permissive grant process. And if there's standing budget items that the council has committed to, those are, I intended that those be treated separately from this policy. My understanding was this policy was to deal with requests that come outside of a budget process, maybe unsolicited, or there is no precedent for them, okay. And particularly For example, the E.L. Crosley request is a specific request for dollars, and there was no guiding policy to indicate. Clearly, the recommendation is that if the council is considering a donation or a sponsorship, that they focus on the eligible resources only and not make cash donations. If cash donations are going to be requested, that they be done through the budget process or through the permissive grant process.
Okay. I appreciate that clarity because it wasn't clear to me. I guess I was looking for the under the solution statement, so I appreciate that comment and certainly that this is a kind of a work in progress. So if we might look to somehow tighten that up a little in future policies, may be helpful at least to myself. So I appreciate that clarity. Others to this, Councillor Rivyak, I see you.
Yeah, thank you, and I also appreciate that clarity. I'm not sure that I'm entirely satisfied with a policy that suggests that the assistance we give through the course of a year be limited to donations in kind as opposed to donations in cash. I don't like being outside of a budgetary process either when it comes to cash, but I can envision circumstances that arise from time to time that we indeed might want to do that. Now, I'm not entirely sure that this policy precludes us considering a donation in cash under some circumstances or others, but I don't see it clearly there. I'm not sure the explanation that we received indicates that we would do cash other than in the permissive grant process. And while I agree that that's really the best, as I say, I can envision circumstances where we might want to consider cash, and I wouldn't mind seeing a policy that envelops that concept as well.
Okay, thank you. Others? So I'm at committee's will. Do we approve it, which is the motion before us, or are there changes to be made, other than maybe some clarifying portions to it?
Well, if I may ask, then, is it the intent of this policy to preclude cash other than through the permissive grant system?
Mr. CEO?
Other than the permissive grant or the budget process, there's two mechanisms there for providing cash to agencies, individuals, whoever. That provides the ability for us to financially plan for it. This policy does not include cash donations specifically because they're not recommended from the town to award cash donations or sponsorships unless it goes through those other two processes, simply because you do it for one, the expectation is you do it for all. And this policy is designed to keep council out of that tricky territory. Having said that, this is a policy of council, and council has the authority to either amend this or to pass a bylaw that would run contrary to this on a case-by-case basis. If there was a specific instance that came up the council felt was worthy of a cash sponsorship or donation, that would be an extraordinary circumstance, and I think that certainly council has that ability. So it doesn't say no forever in perpetuity, but it's simply a policy statement that says, you know, if you come halfway through the year asking for a cash donation, we will not entertain it, generally speaking, and that we will be more than happy to discuss with you a way that we can contribute to the event or to the individual with an in-kind donation.
And Councillor, just to build on what the CEO has indicated, with the permissive grant policy, I can think of discussion we had around this table regarding supporting the Welland Hospital Foundation. That was beyond the permissive grant policy. In fact, it wasn't part of that, and a councillor gave notice that he wanted to seek council's approval for that particular item beyond the normal, what one might call a practice. So that it worked in that situation. Perhaps that's what the councillor had in mind when you're saying that you envisioned a moment when, but that had to require something from this council. So anything further, councillor?
I'm really of two minds on this thing, because I too appreciate the discipline that is being imposed through this policy that will help us not be considering cash grants hither and yon through the course of a year. And I guess my difficulty is with those really individualized, dire circumstances where we might in fact want to do it. But I'm happy to leave that aside, and as long as there's provision available to us to bring those circumstances up as an individual item for discussion when they occur, as opposed to sort of outside the policy, if you will, then in that case, I think this policy would function fairly well. But I do have that struggle within myself. I don't want to cut myself off or cut us off from access to money in the event that money is in fact the right thing to do in whatever those circumstances happen to be.
Okay, thank you. I guess it lends itself to a broader question, if I might be so bold as to comment, and that is, the goal of policy is to cover off the 99% of the time situations, and it's council's prerogative to make the decisions in those 1% of the cases that might be so compelling as to move us to deviate from policy. And one doesn't develop a policy based on the 1%, you base it on the 99. And I think what I'm hearing from the CAO, and that's why I'm satisfied, Councillor, having asked the question, that's what the policy is trying to do.
Yeah, I find that reassuring and helpful. Thank you.
I'm pleased. Thank you. Others? Okay, so I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item, I believe the councillor declared a conflict. And it has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the issue sheet Building Permit Reserve Fund policy, and that the Policy and Priorities Committee recommend the Council approve the issuance of permits policy P502-01. Any discussion regarding this? Essentially taking out that provision of the...
Straightforward.
Okay, thanks for staff for taking a look at it. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Can someone invite Councillor back into the room? This is a long one, so I'm going to start reading it. This has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the Policy and Priorities Committee recommend the Council approve the proposal submitted by the Fenwick Lions Club in principle, as detailed in the issue sheet, Fenwick Lions Proposal Land Swap, and request that the club proceed with a formal business plan that would considering the following caveats. 1. For the project to proceed, the clubhouse facing Church Street planning would have to consider the neighborhood properties and determine the common theme and character to ensure there is some consistency with the new building. 2. The Lions focus on the orientation of the building facing Church Street, which would provide an inviting atmosphere to the pedestrian traffic and wrap around the walkway along the side and rear of the building into a patio area. 3. There would have to be a lot boundary adjustment, termed consent, application completed that would facilitate the exchange or land swap legally. 4, the land with the existing building is zoned RV1 and would require a zoning bylaw amendment, and the newly created lot would also have to be rezoned to a public P zone to allow for the construction of a community hall type of facility. And finally, under the zoning bylaw, all lands with the exception of residential are required to enter into a site plan control. And that when the business plan is completed, the Lions submit it to council for further review and consideration as a condition of moving the proposal forward. Is there any discussion regarding this matter? Certainly appreciate the Lions coming forward with again, a very innovative solution to the issue, having heard council and the community's feedback regarding the moving of, or the, I guess, the construction of a hall on the baseball diamond. This is an innovative approach to that, and using a land swap proposal. So we look forward to, and I think it's also in keeping with council's direction as it states to have a business case. So there being no other comments, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We look forward to seeing further information on that, and thank you, staff, for your work on that. The next item has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor King, that the issue sheet Ontario Municipal Board resolution regarding resolutions passed by various Ontario municipalities relating to appeal functions under the Planning Act be received, and that the P&P Committee recommend that Council adopt the following resolution in this regard. Whereas some Ontario municipal councils suggest that the Province of Ontario disband the Ontario Municipal Board, OMB, and whereas disbanding the OMB would have significant impact on the power of members of the public and applicants to appeal decisions of local councils, and whereas there are opportunities to streamline and improve the Ontario Municipal Board, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Pelham request the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to hold public consultations to help clarify the future role and function of the Ontario Municipal Board. Any discussion regarding this matter? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although this is a good first step, I think that the resolutions that were brought forward that we have been considering from other municipalities deal with the fact that the town has made, or the municipality has made, a decision based on proper planning, legislation, and all of the, we've jumped through all the hoops and made a decision, and in fact, we could go to, or if it's not acceptable, or at least not desirable to one of the parties, they can go to the OMB and have that overturned by a Made in Toronto situation that, you know, really may not suit the municipality properly. And you know, I think that because I don't like it, or because it shouldn't be in my backyard, is not a reason where I should be able to make a change to a particular decision. It's there. We have expert staff. Follow the legislation that is before us, and in fact, all recommendations from staff is based on sound legislative grounds, and in fact, all of that consideration comes through council, and we are cognizant of the expert opinions and the expert knowledge that is impacted to us to make that decision. If in fact the OMB has the power to overturn it on a whim, I have a problem with that. If it's a case of law, I think that that is another case, and if it's a case of law, an error in law that is made, I think there are other grounds. There's courts of law that can deal with that, so the OMB becomes redundant, I think, in that particular case, because if we make an error in law, obviously there should be a correction. However, if there is a difference of opinion of a decision that was made based on current legislation, and that is taken to an OMB hearing that it overturns it, I feel that that's not right. So, and I think the whole gist of what matter came before us is that the OMB could make a decision for small town Ontario that is good for Greater Toronto area, but certainly would not be conducive to, you know, to neighborhood considerations in a small town, and may in fact go against the actual thoughts of trying to keep the small town feel. So, you know, I feel it's a little deeper than the words that you're saying. Give them a chance to have a look at it and streamline things. To make a quicker decision to overturn something that's not good for us isn't good either. I have a problem with that wording as it sits.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made that motion, so I suppose I should speak in support of it. I'm aware that OMB is not a perfect institution. It was created by human beings, and therefore, by definition, it's going to require improvement. And the motion asks for a process in which those improvements that are available should be considered and made to it. But I'm really afraid that if we didn't have an OMB, then something like an OMB would be an idea that would occur to an awful lot of people, and it would probably be an idea that we would want to have. I think the OMB serves a very useful purpose. I think the first purpose that it serves that's really useful is that it does give people an opportunity outside of the courts to challenge rulings. We know what our courts are like. We know that they take an awful long time to resolve issues, and we know that it's really expensive to go to courts. If the only recourse that individuals would have to deal with decisions made that they disagree with are to go through courts, then I suspect that we'd have a good deal less discussion. Maybe that's a good thing in the minds of some, but for those of us who may have from time to time needed to challenge decisions by the town or by others, the OMB has served a really useful purpose. So as I say, if we didn't have one, we'd probably think about having one. And I'd also like us to think about a role that the OMB has that serves Pelham's purposes as well. We are, like many other municipalities, a municipality with a committee of adjustment. From time to time, a committee of adjustment may make a decision that is not supportive of staff's recommendation, that in point of fact, staff then need to address those issues at OMB. They don't bring them here. We've delegated that authority away. So I can certainly envision, having served on the Committee of Adjustment in the past, circumstances where the town may be faced with the need then to go through a lengthy and expensive process through the courts. So it serves our purpose too, at least to some extent. So I think that the OMB does need to have to be looked at and to have such improvements that are possible considered and implemented. But I can't see that it would be a good idea to support the elimination of the OMB. I just can't.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Other councillors? So we have had some councillors speak to the motion, but no changes to the motion. I'm just going to quickly comment that I do think it's important. One thing I want to underscore, I guess, is the idea of streamlining and improving the inter-municipal board. I don't know when the last time was that they would look at the board. I believe it was set up in the early 1970s. I could be wrong at that, but I think it's very important for them to look at that, especially given that some municipalities as large as Toronto, which I'm surprised is actually covered by the OMB because they have their own municipal legislation, the Toronto Act. But also Mississauga and some others have stated that the view that it be disbanded, which was also suggested around this table. But I think there are opportunities to streamline. I do know that they tried to streamline it a couple of years ago, but I'm sure that they can go a little bit further. So I am supportive of the motion, and we can encourage members of the public and the development community as well to get involved in that consultation when it hopefully occurs. So I'm going to call the question on the motion before us. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor King, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the issue sheet regarding Policy Council R12 and recommend to Council that the Policy Council R12 follow-up of Council or Committee decisions be rescinded. Discussion? Mr. CEO, does this mean that Council staff will feel that it doesn't have to follow up in committee decisions in a fast way? There's a
Absolutely not, Mr. Mayor. We want to meet and exceed our customers' expectations. So,
all right, thank you. Anything further? Look forward to that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Continuing, that is.
thank you.
Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive issue sheet regarding the Policy Council 13 and recommend to Council that Council 13 confirming bylaws be rescinded as this protocol is more formally addressed through the town's procurement bylaw. Any discussion?
Procedure bylaw. Procedural
I'm
bylaw.
sorry, I said procurement. It's written procedure. I apologize. Procedure bylaw. Thank you for that. Discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Clark, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive issue sheet regarding Policy Council 14 and recommend to Council that Council Policy 14 resolutions from other municipalities be rescinded. Discussion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Nebulous following the current practice. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive issue sheet regarding Council Policy 15 and recommend to Council that this Policy 15 Canada Day celebrations be rescinded and that the Recreation, Culture and Wellness Department be directed to develop the terms of reference for Canada Day Committee. Questions, comments, Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder in this case whether it might be wiser for us to see a draft terms of reference that we'll be moving to before we rescind this one. Canada Day is a pretty important event in this town, as it ought to be throughout Canada, and I would hate to see a void develop even by accident with respect to how we go forward with this.
Okay. Thank you. Are you looking for a comment, or are you going to make a motion or amendment? Or?
That's a very good point, Mr. Mayor. I should make a motion. I would move that we delay this until we see a draft terms of reference proposed for Canada Day development.
Okay, so you're moving that we postpone it and
Yes.
direct staff to develop that terms of reference and bring this back when that terms of reference is available. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any to that motion, Councillor?
No.
Oh, you're ready to vote on that already? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That postponement is carried. I look forward to that coming before Canada Day. Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Clark, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive issue sheet regarding Policy Council 16 and recommend to Council that Council Policy 16 allowance for travel, conferences, seminars, and workshops be rescinded. Discussion regarding this policy. If this is this, I'm going to ask a question. Is this the same situation where something is being worked on but this isn't done, or perhaps I can have some clarity on this? Who could answer that? Madam Clerk?
No, the policy actually that is in place now in the personnel section is in place. It covers staff and members of council. So there is a policy in place. The policies are being reviewed, but there is an active policy in place.
Okay.
This is a duplication.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the clarity. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, this regular meeting of the Policy and Priorities Committee be adjourned until the next regular meeting, being the Committee of the Whole, scheduled for Monday, May 6th, 2013, unless sooner called by the Mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.